Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Now we're looking at the world economic crisis. The second wave of the Depression continues to hit, and this could get very ugly very, very quickly. The big idea of London and New York, of course, over the past year, really, has been export the Depression to Europe, force Europe to pay for the derivatives bubble, smash the euro, use Greece, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Ireland as other countries as weak flanks. You can't attack the euro frontally, so attack these weak spots and break it up then from within. And their goal, of course, was if you could cut the value of the euro in half or minus 2/3, right, get it down to 50 cents for a euro, you could then go in there and buy up the place. You could buy up all those assets, strip them, loot them, coolie wages over there too, destroy the social safety net that they're partially succeeding in, and you feed all that loot into the $1.5 quadrillion derivatives bubble. That's primitive accumulation, and that's the program of the international financiers. Primitive accumulation against you. Call it concentration camp economics in the final analysis. It's headed in that general direction. Now, this has not worked. The Blitzkrieg has broken down. The Blitzkrieg was already failing in May and June. Reasons for that: the Germans fought back. The Germans banned naked credit default swaps. The Germans banned naked shorts on German stocks and similar bans on some of the worst speculative abuses. Plus, then, the Chinese declined to dump the euro. That was decisive. The Chinese said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to carry water for you crazy Anglo-Americans, and obviously would have been a tremendous damage to China, because this would have precipitated the world once again into the abyss of a very obvious depression with no more questions about it. So for the last 90 days, we've had the euro tending upwards and the U.S. markets really going sideways, and I think we've now reached the point where that can't work anymore. The forces of depression will express themselves. These are $1.5 quadrillion of toxic, kited, bankrupt, poisonous derivatives. They're really centered in London and New York. The London-New York plan was to try to shift that burden onto the Europeans, break it up, right? Get the euro to break up, and then if you had a devalued drachma or a devalued peseta, you can go in there and buy up whatever assets are there for a few pennies on the dollar. So that didn't work. Now where are we? Who's going to be bankrupt in September, October, right? We're looking towards that September-October payments deadline. It's always the cruelest month, right? October 1929, October 1987, and we've just had it September, October, November of 2008. We're getting reports that Bank of America and Citibank are getting to the end of the line. Last Friday, the Wall Street Journal had an article saying that Bank of America, BAC, is under special federal supervision, that they have essentially been seized more than what you thought under the TARP. It reminds me of what I read about in Surviving the Cataclysm, book you need to read, get it through tarpley.net. Surviving the Cataclysm, I detail how Citibank was secretly seized by the feds back in 1991, and very few people knew about it until that was over. Bank of America seems to be in that situation. Bank of America may have the largest derivatives losses of anybody, but the other one that is coming up on the list now is also Citibank. That basically these are insolvent. Bank of America and Citibank insolvent, cash flow not enough to maintain payments. They've been bankrupt since 2007, 2008, but now the insolvency is going to become impossible to conceal, and much of this then converges on the September-October time frame, which of course is when you'd also have the pre-election October surprise in the Middle East, if Deborskrov and some others are correct. So we're on the brink in that sense. And remember, if you see the dollar begin to slide, right now it looks, the pattern of the last couple of days is that the euro is down, the yen is way up, and the dollar is somehow in the middle. The dollar seems to be gaining against the euro quite significantly, and that's gone on today Friday the 13th. But I think this is more of a momentary trend. We're back to that old Dow-dollar trade-off that we saw even a year ago and since. The general tendency, it seems to me, is that the dollar and the pound are the most likely candidates for short-term collapse. Now, it's quite possible that the dollar and the pound will be joined by the euro. That's equally possible. It's a real depression capable of taking down all of them. In that case, you'd have the yen as the survivor. The last man standing would be the yen. If the dollar falls, the pound goes, and the euro is also dragged into the strudel of the collapse, then that's perfectly possible. The yen has its own problems. The yen is so strong that it's strangling Japanese exports in the short term. But remember, policymakers don't care about imports and exports. They care about financial valuations in today's world. So there we go. That's the financial situation. Now, in terms of Obama's politics, General Petraeus has opened up the fateful question of the Afghanistan timeline. He's already saying he wants more time. This is laying the basis for a presidential campaign against the appeaser and weakling Obama. We've had this strange attack by Robert Gibbs against the professional leftists. Really interesting. It's the night of the long knives in milder form on the installment plan, I guess you'd say. Because, of course, it's the professional leftists. It's the Daily Kos, Huffington, MSNBC. Those were the shock troops that gave Obama victory in the Democratic primaries, and those were his most fanatical deployments in the entire 2008 campaign. So Gibbs now comes out and says, these people need to be drug tested. They think Obama and Bush are the same thing. They're crazy. And so forth. So there's been a wave of revulsion and anger and resentment against that coming out of those same circles. Obama's poll standings collapsed. Really, he's below 50%. He's really approaching 40% in many of these polls. However, at the same time, notice that the Republican Party has just registered its lowest approval rating in history in a Wall Street Journal poll. So whatever happens in November, and it's likely to happen, that people vote Republicans in, this is not saying we want the Republican program. It's not there saying we want privatizer Ryan to run the economy and Congressman John of Orange, the tanning bed abuser. They're not saying they want those figures. They're simply saying here's a protest vote against Obama. So it all comes down to Obama. Obama is a disaster. Obama makes these reactionary Republicans quite possibly electable, ogres though they are. Compared to Obama, even an ogre has a chance at the polls. So what Obama is doing is taking this once-in-a-generation opportunity for a party realignment, and he's squandering it. Now, people have got to realize this. We need a primary challenger against Obama, hitting the ground running in New Hampshire, in Iowa, in January. This is now less than 6 months away. If you're interested in peace, if you're part of the anti-war movement, nothing else makes any sense. And I refer you once again to the interesting speech by Glenn Ford of the Black Agenda Report at that Albany conference a couple of weeks ago. The black community is now the most confused group in U.S. politics. The answer is one word, Obama. You've got to break the Obama mythology, and that has got to be demystified, or you're going to be heading into a terrible situation. So the party realignment due in 2004, 2008, perhaps now into 2012. It can't work. It's going to be aborted. It's going to be a disaster if Obama remains in power. So we'll be back with our second hour of World Crisis Radio. See you in a minute.